You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. Paige O'Malley is a puppeteer, an actress, and a singer, and she is today's guest on 15 Minutes With. Paige, welcome to the show.
Woohoo! Hi.
Hi. I'm so happy that you agreed to do this.
You coerced me into it, but
yes.
Yes.
It's like, you will see a dog.
That's all I needed to hear.
There you go. Paige, where did you grow up?
I grew up outside of Philly, but I always say Philly just to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, naturally. The suburbs.
And what was the first thing when you were a kid that kind of captured you creative-wise, that you were like, oh, I love this. This is, like, did you take music lessons? Did you take acting lessons? Stuff like that?
I started off as a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
I did dance for my whole life. It was kind of like started when I was little, doing the little ballet classes where you're just sort of roaming around the room, like trying to get wrangled and not really any skill level there, but stuck with it through high school. And we did, recitals every year. Did the Nutcracker every year. So I like the pageantry of it. I mean, I've been wearing like tranny makeup for since I was 3. So that's sort of where my glam squad kind of style comes from. So I that was really great physical training, to kind of transition into theater for sure. So it gave me a certain fluency with rhythm and just movement in general. So it was a good basis for my work.
And were your parents creative at all?
No.
That's fine, yeah.
No, my dad was a businessman through and through. And he loved nature, though. We often would go on hikes through arboretums, and he was a really thoughtful, kind of pensive type of guy. He appreciated literature, for sure, poetry. But yeah, my parents always called me artsy, which is how you know that they don't understand.
Yeah, she's very artsy.
Yeah, exactly. I take that as a kind of an underhanded compliment.
And did you have other siblings?
Yes, I do have an older brother.
An older brother, and was he creative?
No.
So you were
I'm
artsy.
a fluke.
You were the artsy.
Actually,
one.
my brother always used to torture me in general, but he would always be like, "Look at you." You don't look anything like us. Look at you. Because actually, everybody in my family is quite tall, and I'm 5 feet tall. So, yeah. And they were always like, "This is your year. This is when you're gonna grow." And I'm like, "I'm 33 now. I don't know.
Maybe
that ship has sailed."
What if you're 85, and that's when you suddenly grow? You suddenly grow. Oh my gosh, she's the tallest person here. So. And you mentioned that you transitioned to theater. Were you doing shows at a young age, or it was like high school? Is that when you started getting into theater stuff? Or?
I would go to artsy summer camps
okay.
that my mom would send me to. My parents were very supportive of my endeavors, so I can't complain about that. I remember, I think the first show I did was Arsenic and Old Lace when I was in second grade.
That's a good one.
Yeah, pitch perfect. It was really excellent. No, but yeah, I continued doing a lot of musical theater through high school, and then once I got a little older, I started doing children's participatory theater at just a local community theater, and that sort of was the basis of my style currently, which is kind of exaggerated, kind of clownish, sort of very movement based. So. I do adult shows for sure as well. All kinds of very adult, all sorts of shows. But I mean, where my heart lies with family entertainment ultimately, because it kind of informed my whole aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know, I kind of guess growing up out here. Well, although didn't you grow up? You lived out here for a while later on.
Yes.
Okay, but I see more as a summer camp as kind of more of an East Coast thing as opposed to West Coast. I mean, it wasn't a bunch of things. But like, did you go, like, was it a camp where it's like you're gone for 6 weeks at the arts camp, or was it?
Oh, no. I would sleep at my own house because
okay.
I always wanted to do one of those camps.
Yeah, okay.
But my mom was too much of like a helicopter mom to like allow for that.
Yeah.
But no, it's just like, oh my God, it's not horrible and snowing and terrible right now, so you can go do something fun and creative.
Right.
Yeah, it was that sort of thing.
So, and you were doing performances like in high school and stuff?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I did everything from like, you know, what did we do? Like children's shows that were sort of like one-offs where they wouldn't have to pay the rights. It's like The Clown Prince. It's like no one's heard of that.
Yeah.
But and it's about recycling, and like, you know, they try and pack all these morals into it. But and then at the same time I did cabaret when I was 15. Like, so by morning I'd be doing a kid show, and by night I'm doing like a burlesque act, and my mom's like, "What did you sign up for? And why is my underage teen dancing in underwear?"
Yeah.
So.
And did you, when you graduated high school, did you go to college?
I did, yes. I got an undergrad degree at NYU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was pretty insane because I'd never been to New York before, and I magically got in there, and they did like a phone interview, so I didn't even have to go up there to interview. And so the first day that I just moved in was like 18 years old, like, here, let's do this. And it was really exciting and thrilling.
Yeah. New York seems like a challenging place to live. Like,
it is arduous, and I didn't realize that because I stayed there for 10 years because you just get in the whole mindset of this is the only city on earth. Like, you call it the city.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else falls away, especially as a performer. Although there's plenty of cities like that. I mean, even Vegas, like,
yeah, which
I'm not a huge fan of, but like, I get that it's like a performer city because there are great opportunities there. I'll be performing there very soon, actually. plug.
Yes, we'll plug that. Were you performing while you were at NYU?
I was, yes, but I wasn't in the right mind space to audition for Tisch, which is the acting school at the time. I was going through some family stuff. My dad was really ill, and I just wasn't ready to go down that road. I'd been performing and I'd been learning empirically the whole time, but I just needed to kind of get my wits about me, and just I ended up doing like classical studies for 2 years, which was just like, I got an Associate of Arts degree, which I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. It's called AA. But that, and then I transitioned into, I found art therapy. So I studied like all the creative arts therapies, drama therapy, music therapy, visual art, all of that, just theoretically, because you really need to do continuing education to kind of pursue that as like a career. But it was sort of just a self-indulgent sort of major because I needed to work through some things myself, you know, and I think that art making is so cathartic. So that's sort of where I'm coming from in that regard. And then my mom was like, well, you better do something practical. So my mom's 85 years old apparently, but so I did Spanish language as well, just to appease her. And I'm glad I did. I mean, it's been really helpful, and it's helped me get sort of to a place where my niche is that I do bilingual puppet shows, which I've done a number of.
Well, so. And where did puppets enter the picture? Like, when did you start doing stuff with puppets?
It was just a random audition I saw in the paper after I'd already graduated with my BA, and it was one of those days where I had like every excuse in the book, and I was like, I'm not going to that. Like, cannot make it to this audition. Like, I'm hungry. I'm young and self-obsessed. Like there's like every reason why I can't get there. And I just went anyway because I'd never picked up a puppet before. So I was like, this isn't even in my wheelhouse, and I don't like to go to auditions unless I feel like I'm really like a good fit, because I just feel like it wastes everyone's time basically. But so I went, and they just had me tell a fairy tale with a sheep puppet, and I think I told like maybe like Rapunzel, I want to say. And it was super chill, and it turns out it was this company that they did traveling shows. They had like a home base out of a little used bookstore, and it was like very humble beginnings, and the company like slowly transitioned and started getting more bookings and kind of got some momentum over the years, and I ended up staying with them for about 8 years. First they were called the Story Hour, and then they were called Puppetonia, because the owners were from Romania, and they just had this like, they were just amazing people, and they taught me everything they knew, and I became their artistic director and stuck with it, and saw a lot of actors coming through because, you know, it's a very transient life, but I was always sort of like the staple there. And it was just a really nice community feeling, and I was doing up to like 14 shows a week every morning, like dragging myself out of bed like, and just like biking over there and just trying to think of some sort of skeletal framework for the show of like, all right, what characters are we going to meet today? And I ended up devising a whole slew of characters, you know, from like a construction worker from Russia named Yanni, who was like a really tender soul and like to write in his diary and like weep at sad movies, to like a Hoboken cop named Mr. Ossifer, who I still am very fond of.
Oh, I've seen
and play with him all the time.
Well, that's great. It's interesting that like you just go for this puppet audition and then you wind up being the artistic director. Like that's like it just shows like if you like something, it can turn into more than just a puppet gig.
Yeah,
you know, it's like now you're in charge of things, and I'm sure you were paid to do that, right?
Oh yeah. They were really generous, and they were some of the best people I've ever worked with. Like the bosses themselves became like family members, and it just felt like more like a really community atmosphere, because it was also a space where people would gather and just talk about stuff or have potlucks, or it was just like a really good one of the only bookstores in that area. It was in Hoboken, New Jersey, was where we were based out of. And even the Barnes & Noble that was there, like in that town, went under. But this store, the Symposia bookstore, just it endured because it was like a really great meeting place of the minds and of the babies.
Yeah,
for me.
Well, and the other thing is, because you mentioned you did like 14 shows a week or something like that.
Yeah, not even including the like traveling birthday party shows, which were always like, here we go. Yeah. Like, get your game face on, because these moms are going to be drunk on Pinot, and like these kids are going to be on a sugar rush, and they might attack you in the middle of it, and no one's going to stop them.
But like, but doing something like that many shows, I think really is like, that's how you become a good performer, is doing that. Just, you know, that's why Steve Martin says he doesn't want to do, you'll never see him do stand-up again, because in his mind, you have to do stand-up for 2 months before you get on the Tonight Show. You know, like every night before you do the Tonight Show, you know, just to be good. But
yeah, no, it's trial by fire for sure. Like I remember there was one show where I was supposed to be doing this like magic trick, which was fairly, like, I'm not a magician, and to be fair, it was kind of subpar. So like I'll take the criticism, but there was just these little boys that were just a bit too old for probably what I was doing, and they all collaborated and unionized and decided to like be like, down with Paige, and I was like in the middle of like, now you see it, now you don't, I'm gonna make it disappear, and they started chanting, make Paige disappear, make Paige disappear. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go backstage and cry. And then their parents like gave them these giant cookies. So I'm like, cool. Like, this is the
reward
message.
Them.
Yeah, this is the message we want.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, it's improv at its finest, because I was always shying away from like comedic improv because I dated an improver growing up, and I always felt like it was kind of a boys' club. I had my own reasons not to like go through the UCB track, for instance, but at the same time, every single morning I was coming in with just a really basic rundown of, okay, here's the timbre of this story, and we were improving the dialogue and acknowledging the things that happen right in front of us, because it was a very hands-on show and the kids are like right in your face, you know, it's not a whole lot of cover,
right?
And I think that was like the best training there is, because the funniest moments are the impromptu ones. So, as you know.
Yes. I live it.
Yes.
No. So because you lived out here for a while, when did you move? What was the reason to move out here? Like, give it a go out here?
Oh, I followed a man. Okay. No, my husband came out here to go to UCLA for grad school.
Okay.
transitioning from like financial planning into nonprofit sector. He's a superhero, and so I came with him, kicking and screaming.
Really?
I did not want to come out here because I had my puppet gig. I mean, it was my place. I was on the sign outside. Like, I'd made it. Like, I don't have high expectations. But it just...
well, but the thing is, I don't want to just throw that away. That could be a living. You know what I mean?
It
like
was.
That's not... It's like... Yeah, it's like, oh, everyone wants to be in an Academy Award-winning film, but it's like that can be a living, and it's a lot of fun. It can be
absolutely
great.
And I'm very self-deprecating for comedic effect, but
right.
I loved that job, and I had complete creative freedom. I mean, I was writing the scripts and devising the characters, and my favorite part, picking all the music, because I would play anything from like Motown to 90s pop songs, like anything that was nostalgic for me and had like a good enough beat that I could get a baby to like shake in their diapers. So I was like, this is it. So I really enjoyed picking the music and devising like the movement portions of those shows. So I just, it was like starting over.
Yeah.
Very literally. I had no prospects, and he was about to inherit all this debt going into grad school. So I was like, oh boy, this is a good decision for us. Here we go. But it turned out literally the day we got here, we went right to In-N-Out and had some lunch, and I was like, I'm sold. Like, it's sunny. I have a Neapolitan shake in my hands, and I'm so happy.
Yeah.
And then I found sort of a little community of cool people. I was doing like a weekly show in a children's event space called Lollipop Dream, which my friends dubbed Lollipop Delusions. Because I was also doing like Disney princess impersonating, storybook princess impersonating.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To avoid any legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. So it was sort of like just a very pared down version of what I was doing previously at Puppetonia. And then at night, I was doing these crazy kind of cabaret burlesque style shows out of a speakeasy that my friend created out of nowhere over on the west side. And we were doing a lot of like Candor and Ebb, dancing around in underwear. So it was again that dichotomy of family friendly and adult friendly styles. But
then you also found puppet work out here as well, right?
Yes, the day so my husband graduated, and we knew that our time here was finite, even though at that point we were so soft and like just we're like, oh, it's tacos and sunny all the time. It's taco o'clock. So he was ready to move back. He had gotten a job in Washington, D.C., where we live now. And he flew out, and I got this opportunity to audition for Swazzle for their big national tour, Dream Carver, and a bilingual puppet musical.
Was perfect.
My thing.
Yeah.
So, and largely because I had Spanish language in my special skills, which you always think you're like, oh, yeah, special skills, like, whatever. No one looks at that. Like, you write dumb stuff like, I play the kazoo.
Right. Horseback riding.
Yeah. But that actually came in handy, and I stayed back 2 days. He'd already flown out, and I was like, I'm just going to go to this audition and see what happens. And it turned out, and I was able to tour with them, and now I'm on tour with them again. So yeah, I'm back here.
Well, with our new show, The Little Prince.
That's right.
And I will put links to that in the show notes so people can go check it out. But it'll be in Las Vegas, so
that's right.
People can go see, and in Costa Mesa out here in California.
That's right.
Las Vegas might be a little bit more central for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I wanted to ask you too is, back in Washington, D.C., you're still doing kind of the story time thing at a bookstore again.
Absolutely, because I really missed that aspect of my life, and I've done some really great puppet work in D.C. There's a really thriving indie theater scene and some really creative puppet builders and people doing some innovative stuff. So, and it's sort of off the map because it's close enough to New York that people are like, oh, just go to New York, and then they kind of miss out on this hidden gem in the capital. But it's I was doing like anything from Shakespeare's really big there because there's the Folger Shakespeare Library as like the largest in the nation and has all the folios. So I did The Winter's Tale, and we used like a bunraku version of Mamilius, who's a 5-year-old who dies during the show. So it was me and 2 other people on him, and I voiced him and did his head, which is the important part, and I think like his left arm, which was excellent. Much better than the right.
The reviews. The left arm.
Well, what was funny was that I think his right arm was sort of like, the builder was sort of in a crunch to get it finished, and she affixed it wrong, so it sort of just looked like he had 2 left hands anyway. And he was called creepy by one reviewer because he sort of had these really spacey blue eyes that's peered into your soul. So I think that was an accurate assessment. But so I was doing kind of more arguably highbrow stuff like that, and then I went to the post office one day, and right next to it, this brand new used bookstore opened, which is, you know, just like Symposia. I was like, oh, this is just a great space, just has good energy, and I like the owners. And I went in there, I stumbled in there. I had just rolled out of bed, and I was just running errands, like looking like an old homeless lady. And I was like, oh, let me entertain your children.
I want to do a show.
And luckily, the owner, Pablo, who's a really cool dude, was like, okay, and gave me a shot. And I have a really steady audience there of appreciative little kids. In fact, over the summer, this summer camp was just coming in, like just bringing. It was actually almost too many kids. So, but I can't complain about that. And it's just really mellow. Kind of, I sing some songs, read some books, bring out some puppets, and then the grand finale is the bubble machine, which is like I might as well just do that. Should be the whole show because
2 hours.
That's
of the
the best
machine.
part. Yeah. So, but it warms my heart because that's kind of where I got my start.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Well, and you're also, I want to wrap up by talking about you're doing audiobooks.
I am.
As well.
Yes.
And that's more of a recent thing that you got into, right?
Yeah. I had went to audition for them. I worked with a coach who was really reasonable, and she has a home studio, and she helped me record a reel because this is something I've been trying to get into for a long time, but I just didn't know where to begin because it's sort of expensive to get a home studio going and all of that, because there are plenty of people on Audible who have their own sort of stuff going on, but I wanted to work under the umbrella of like an organization, so this seemed perfect. I picked like a nonfiction piece and a fiction piece and just recorded a couple quick reels, and they had me in. I then had to do an audition and do a piece live, which was really nerve-wracking. I mean, as soon as they hit record, it's like,
Don't do that. Oh, she's not very good. She's screaming.
Right? She's really good at screaming, though. So turns out they were looking for, they had certain demographics in mind, so I didn't get the job right away. And I was totally fine with it. No, not at all. I was super depressed.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just, you get your hopes up. It's hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, cut to like 6 months later, the guy that they hired ended up having like an indiscretion. They had to let him go. I can't talk about it. It's government work. And they called me in, and ever since June, I've been recording audiobooks every day, and it's just really scratches that performance itch. So even if you're between shows, you feel like you're being creative on the daily, and that's important to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Paige, it's been great talking to you. If people want to go check you out online, do you have like a website and stuff people can?
I don't. You can always find me on Facebook making really profound statements, or on Instagram. I'm Miss Pina on there.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes,
sure.
so people can see your pictures of Bubs.
Yes, I know. It's mostly my dog. I should just have it be his profile, really.
Well, he's an adorable dog.
He is adorable.
Paige, thank you so much for talking to me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Grant.
Paige O'Malley is a puppeteer, actress, and a singer, and she was today's guest on 15 Minutes With. For a link to her Instagram account, visit GrantCast.com and check out the entry for this episode. 15 Minutes With on the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media and made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Mer Lafferty, Dale Gadania, Stephen Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Dave Slesher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Conflin, Dorothy Baciocco, Jeff Peterson, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wabshall, Twitter user Butzingear, aka Wildcat, Eve Cunning, Mike Hamilton, Gaston Moreno, Reed Loveland, Ivan Asquith, Vanessa Whitney, Nancy McCarthy, Janine Lee, Peggy Etra, and Kristen Hogan of Squid Friends. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly donation today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on iTunes. And while you're over there on iTunes, be sure to click that subscribe button. That way you'll get new episodes the moment they are released. If you have any feedback for the show, you can send it directly to me at grant@throwingtoasters.com or get in touch via Twitter, where my username is ToasterBoy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time. The GrantCast is copyright 2017 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.